thing that you have to know. So I remember when I first discovered you in Kerrang Radio, hosting your own show. It gives me hopes, really hopes, and the energy to do what I'm doing right now with my website. So
great.
I was finally be able to put sentences on what is cruelly missing in this music industry. What do you think about what I'm just saying?
I think it's really sad that anybody would feel like maybe they're not doing the right thing or not belong, because the whole point of metal is for everybody, and it's the place where everybody can go to. But it's great that you're creating something that you feel that maybe isn't out there, because I think that's important.
Yeah, but the thing is also, I felt the same thing when I first saw Nova Twins playing here in France at Hellfest, the biggest festival here in France, and also in my town at Nantes. I felt the same really thing that this is missing, this diversity, this those kind of women like you, badass. And so how do you feel about that?
I very much agree. I think the problem is, I feel like the fans have always been open. Yes, I sometimes have had racist comments at festivals or whatever it might be, but I've always found that the fans only ever cared about the fact that I had my knowledge was up to scratch. Yeah. The issue is raised when it comes to the gatekeepers, the people who run radio stations, run magazines, run TV channels, run festivals, because what happens, I think, is that what a lot of fans of metal don't get to see is what it's like behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And behind the scenes is very much a boys' club. And so there's no wonder, because to get through and make your mark within this industry, when it is like that, is particularly hard, because people don't understand. They say, well, I don't care what color, what gender, whoever you are, as long as you know about music. But the fact of the matter is, when we look at our friends in our workplace, whatever our workplace might be, the likelihood is we hang out with people who are quite similar to us, who have similar interests, who look like us.
Right.
And even though we might get on, as a woman, I've got loads of white male friends, but I'm more likely to be attracted to women to hang around with.
Yes.
And it's the same for men, and that's not their fault. But what does need to be looked at is, if you are in a position of power, of giving others opportunity, people need to look at whether they are helping people that remind them of themselves, or whether they're trying to reflect the way the world is today.
Okay. Yeah, it's good to hear that. Yeah, you're right. How everything started for you as a presenter? You said, I think I read that you wanted to be a presenter at age of 12, right?
Yeah,
No?
probably younger, probably from about 9. I wanted to be a TV presenter.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do kids' TV. So that was always my thing. And it was only when I became obsessed with metal that there's something funny. I think anybody who's a metalhead understands what it's like.
Yeah.
You don't just get into music. You don't just start listening to it. You become obsessed with it. You start like dressing like you're into metal. You only listen to metal. You watch films. You get excited when metal music comes on a TV show. Like, your life becomes metal. And so it was natural that my ambition kind of went down the metal route, and I stopped wanting to do other types of presenting.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. I just imagine you right now at the age of 14, 15, hanging with your mates and dressing like a metal girl. No?
No.
Right? No?
Around that age, I lived in Uganda in East Africa, because my parents moved out there. So I was out there for about maybe 5 years. So I went to an international school. Okay. So there weren't metalheads. There wasn't access to like school things like that. It was more, schools were very, like our class as an international school were really small, and it tended to be foreign students. So people would come in, people would leave, and I was quite heavily bullied at school. So I didn't really have friends at school. I used to keep myself to myself. And it wasn't until I came back to the UK at 15 that I was kind of able to make friends. But I was like, people found me weird because I went to an all-white school in Yorkshire, where I'm from. Mm-hmm. And I spoke to everybody. So I used to speak to the popular kids because I didn't care they were popular. I didn't really know. I wasn't in school etiquette. So I spoke to the rock kids, and I went to their gigs and saw their shows, and I hung out with the preppy kids and the sports kids. So I was just more confused. I was more just doing my own thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So also, could you tell me a little more about, I don't know, winning a UNICEF award?
Yeah, that was mad. That was so it was basically when I was around 12, and I started the first ever kids TV show and kids radio show. It started as a radio show in Uganda, and kids, like, it's so hard to picture when you're from Europe, but they had one TV station and 2 radio stations at the time. And the show that I started, there was no kids shows. There was nothing for kids out there. And I used to read stories, and one of the things that I used to do was talk about AIDS. And I didn't even know what I was doing, if I'm completely honest. Like, I didn't realize the impact of what I was doing at the time because I was so young. But I knew that AIDS, so at that time, I think it was about 1 in 8 people had AIDS. And so it was everywhere in Uganda. And there was a real, there was like, you had the religious people who were trying to deny it. You had the Pope saying AIDS wasn't real, it's a myth made up by the devil. But there were people dying, and I was helping out orphanages as part of my school. And so I used to just talk about that on air. And I didn't realize that it would be such a big deal for kids to be being read children's stories, because a lot of them weren't in school or couldn't afford school, but they were able to crowd round and listen to a radio. And I was talking about things like AIDS. And so UNICEF recognized that. And I've kind of got this plaque thing, and I went walking around their big headquarters, and I was so young, it didn't really compute what I was doing, because I wasn't doing it to make a difference. I was just doing it because that was life for a kid in Uganda at that age.
Wow, unbelievable. It's incredible. You are incredible, amazing, really. I want to ask you another question. What kind of students you were at this time?
I was hard to teach because I was really keen and I wanted to learn and I wanted to be super intelligent, but my attention span is so short. So I'd be sitting trying to concentrate, like I failed French, and I'd want to learn. It's not that I didn't want to learn French. It's just that I'd be going, oh, I'd be listening, and then I'd go, oh wow, there's a butterfly, there's a thing, oh there's something on my shoe, and I couldn't concentrate.
Because you host heavy music awards a few weeks ago, it was easy for you to organize all this award thing?
So it was a lot of hard work that goes on behind the scenes, because most live performances that are happening at the moment are pre-recorded. And I said to the creators of the Heavy Music Awards, I said, I don't want to pre-record it. I want to be live. I want to be able to chat to people. I want things to go wrong. It has to be really live. And so there's a lot of technical and a lot of production that happens with that. And it's amazing because they did a great job in bringing it all together.
Your favorite time on this evening of Heavy Music Award?
I'd say my favorite part of the evening was my favorite part about doing live television is always when it goes wrong. Because I think that live things need to be a bit more fun, and there needs to be things that go wrong because it makes it more human. But I guess my favorite thing was seeing the comments coming in, because it really gave me faith and reminded me how important rock and metal is, because there's so many people constantly saying that rock and metal is dead, but at the end of the day, the Heavy Music Awards reached the biggest audience it's ever reached, and that's because rock and metal heads, we're out there. And it was a real reminder that we're out there. We need more content. We need more stuff to come forward.
Let's also, sorry, I have a few questions, and my English is a little, I try to do my best to be.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Better than my French.
Yeah, but what can you do? So, yeah, let's talk about now here this.
So Karang Magazine approached me quite a few months ago to write up about the new artists, which I'm listening to at the moment, and just talk about which bands I'm getting excited about. And again, that to me is such a strong sign in rock and metal, because I think we need to hear from different people, because different people identify with different things. So if we have people that are all the same writing columns, you're going to get the same stuff. And a lot of people in the journalist world are quite similar and are all mates. So it's really amazing that Kerrang got me involved, and it says a lot about Kerrang Magazine and their ethos of how they work.
Yeah, it's really cool. And also to talk about diversity in music, especially in metal and rock scene, and also about Black Lives Matter movements. In your opinion, how can we push this movement to forward?
On a global scale or within music?
Within music, especially.
Within music, it's all about representation. So there's a reason that there's more women in rock and metal now. I used to go to like gent shows and I'd be the only female in the room. And now I go to places like Bloodstock Festival and there's way more women. And a lot of that has to do with, I feel, with representation of women. Like people like Lizzie Hale are so important. I went to see Lizzie Hale in this moment, and New Year's Day, and they were all playing together, and the audience was mainly women, and that shows that when you have women up on stage, it attracts more women, and it shows that when you have diversity on stage, it attracts a more diverse audience. So the only way for us to progress that within the industry is to be more diverse, and those decisions aren't made by fans. It would be lovely to say they are, but they're not. They're made by booking agents, they're made by labels, and labels decide who to sign. They decide who to put money behind. They decide, and then once that label's decided that, that's when magazines start covering them. And we've got to stop treating Black bands like a one-hit wonder. So at the moment, there's a real trend within metal where people go, oh my God, I found this band from Kenya, from Tanzania, and they find these like underground bands and they show them once and then that's it. And it's like the competition to show the most underground band. But what I've said time and time again is that I've supported the Nova Twins since 2015. And I think to be a true music champion, you can't just say, look at this underground band I found, look at this one, look at this one. You have to keep supporting them. And that goes for labels, that goes for personalities, that goes for whoever you are. So I think the way to move metal forward is to create diversity within it.
And to talk about the Nova Twins, Amy and Georgia launched Voices for the Unheard, the playlist on Spotify. And to be honest, I discovered through this playlist more Black artists than I could imagine. So this is not normal. This make me a little angry, really, about promoter, you know. So in 2020, how can we explain that an environments such as music made up mainly of artists with an open mind, who are supposed to have this open mind, is also a place where you can find misogyny, racism? Do you think that it's racism or what?
Yeah, it's racism. It's just not the form of racism that most people think racism exists in. So most people think racism is walking around with a Nazi symbol on you, and wanting to publicly hang people. But racism is so much more subtle and so much more nuanced than that. And racism comes in all different forms. And I think that's what people don't understand. One of the things I feel that I've seen a lot is that nothing will change if we try to educate the audience.
Yeah.
Because the audiences don't fully realize a lot of the time. Because how can you understand? Most people don't understand what it is to be Black. They don't understand. No. Most people also don't understand what it's like to be in a band or to be a presenter. They don't understand because they've not been through that journey. So it's up to the people in the industry to make this change, because I honestly believe that if the people in the industry start making a change, the audience will accept it. But the fact of the matter is, we have artists. There are emo rappers right now who are 100% creating rock.
Yeah.
But the problem is they're getting ignored and they're getting called emo rap, and they're just not being accepted by the rock industry. And that's not fans. That's down because young rock fans are listening to emo rap. It's the older people who run the magazines, the radio stations, the websites. Yeah. They're not talking about these bands as if they're part of our scene. You've got artists who are like, even Juice WRLD. I believe Juice WRLD sampled Slipknot on one of his songs.
Okay.
Like, but the problem, what's happened within rock press and with that old school, is in nu metal you had white guys rapping, and they're okay with that, and they're okay with, say, playing Insane Clown Posse in the rock world. That's quite accepted. Cypress Hill are often accepted in the rock world. Eminem's accepted in the rock world. He even wrote a song about how he doesn't want to be played on rock radio stations. And yet, when Black people come forward and do the same thing, they're told, that's not rock, it's rap.
Okay.
And they're doing the same thing. And the only difference is the color of their skin. So what needs to happen is the rock industry, and it's all these old men who are of a certain age who are saying that's not rock, but they need to be called into question. But what's happening now is there's people starting to come into positions like myself where I'm able to call people out, and I'm at the table when people are having these conversations, and I'm able to point at people and say that's not right.
That's interesting, and that's really cool, and it's the things to do. Yeah, right now we need more people like you, Sophie K.
There are people out there. I can definitely say that Merlyn from Metal Hammer, he is the best thing to have happened to Metal Hammer in a long time.
Okay.
He's the new editor, and I will never forget working at Team Rock, and there was an article that went out online, which I would class as transphobic. I didn't agree with it. And in front of the whole of the team, they were giving this talk about how well the website was doing. And I stood up and called out all the bosses. And I said, this isn't okay. We cannot talk about trans people in this way. And they did it because they thought that metal fans would be transphobic. So they thought they'd be able to rally and I stood up but actually the metal fans didn't like it, because metal fans they don't hate everyone as much as the media thinks. And I stood up and I said, this isn't okay. And I remember I was shaking like this. because I'm still quite fresh in my job, and I thought I was going to lose my job. And Merlyn, who is now the editor of Metal Hammer, was the guy who said, she's right, we cannot do this. And he defended me, and then a few other journalists got involved as well. And there was a group of us all saying, this is not what we want to, we don't want to work for a company who does things like that. And there are people there, and what's nice is those people are starting to now get those positions of power. So I think people like Merlyn are very important for the world of metal.
Wow, that's cool to hear. Really, I'm
People
really
don't know
happy
about
to
that
hear.
though.
Yeah, we are living currently a difficult time with COVID-19. Okay, so how was lockdown for you?
Lockdown was awful for me. I'm not made to be, like, my life isn't set up to be living the way lockdown makes you live. And I'm only saying this because I think it's important. I think a lot of people have been like, yeah, everything's great. I got to do this and I got to do that. And I think it's important that if you're struggling as well, to be open about that. And I want people to know that they're not the only ones who struggle. But yeah, I've struggled with lockdown. I've hated every single minute of it. And I'm still struggling with it now, even though it's not as strict.
Yeah.
I don't want to make banana bread. I don't want to. I want to be out at gigs. I want to be living my life.
Okay, I was in lockdown with my husband and my kids, so I was making a lot of things, like not banana bread, but cookies.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot of people.
It was hard. It was really, really hard. Even I love my family, but yeah, I was a little not myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, about COVID-19. In your opinion, how do you see the future of live music today? Do you think that we can have, I don't know, a festival again or concerts? Oh,
Mess. We're in a mess. I think I do think something has to happen soon, whether it be tests that are quick, like 20-minute tests.
Yeah.
And from what I've read, I believe that might come before the vaccine. But I think now is an awful time for bands, but hopefully it will help bands learn to have a better online presence. So we're seeing more artists doing podcasts. We're seeing people doing more online stuff, which is something rock has always been a bit rubbish at. Like when you look at hip hop, they're very aware that their music isn't where they make their money. They make their money in their online presence. And I feel that rock is starting to do that a lot more. So I'm just hoping, because I'm in that category as well. I'm so bad at doing online content. But I'm just hoping that we get some tests soon and something can happen, because if something doesn't happen soon, rock will really suffer. And I say that because a lot of the bands who are playing quite big venues, they're earning just a living wage. And we assume that they're rich, that they're rock stars and they drive fancy cars and drink champagne. But I've seen behind the curtain and they're broke. And that's the scary part for me, is the rock stars, because a lot of those guys don't have transferable skills.
So band, I don't know, like in England, band like, I don't know, Bob Dylan, they start to be not famous, but they start to be online. We can see them, more often, and they sell merch. So is that a good news too?
Yeah, I've been trying to buy merch as much as possible. But I do feel like bands now need to out the box. They need to start thinking of new creative ways, because so basically metal doesn't pay that well, rock doesn't pay very well, we all know that, And so up until a few months, until last year, the end of last year, I ran a company which specialized in live production.
Yeah.
And so I worked for big brands like Ugg boots, Primark, big brands, Red Bull, and I would put together their creative ideas for live that they were going to do, and creative ideas for, and put together production teams and how it was going to work. The problem is with metal, and I've tried to put ideas out there and say, guys, let's create something, let's do something.
Yeah.
Everyone in metal is too far behind.
Oh my God.
And they're too far behind with online content.
Yeah.
And if people keep thinking gigs aren't going to be enough, unless you're Corey Taylor, who is huge, for the medium-sized bands, gigs aren't going to be enough. So people need to start coming up with creative ideas to raise money.
Yeah, you're right. There is an undeniable young talent in rock metal from UK. So what is your secret?
I think the key is, I don't know, but I think it's a lot of, the UK is in a bad way right now. And I think the worse it is for the people, the more music we get, because the more angry young people we get. And I feel like, I mean, even just looking at what's happening with Brexit, I'm not embarrassed to admit that I am very left. I'm very socialist. I hate conservatives, and I hate everything they stand for. And I feel like the best music comes from poverty and anger. And I feel like, especially with our healthcare system in the bin at the moment, I feel like that's really, it creates a lot of animosity, which creates good music.
Wow, I didn't expect this answer, but you're right. You're totally right. What is your favorite social media, Sophie K?
Probably Twitter.
Okay. Why?
And I like to post on Twitter, but I like to look on TikTok.
Oh.
So I don't like posting anything that has my face in it.
Yeah.
And I need to get over that because, and I don't know what's wrong with me, but I have this block. I hate posting about myself. I'm not vain. I can talk about bands all day. I can talk about other things all day, but I don't like going, hi, my life's better than yours. That's not who I am.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and that's Instagram. All of those things are about going, my life's better than your life. Look how perfect my life is. And that's not who I am. I'd rather be honest. So I prefer Twitter because then I can just say what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
But TikTok is genius. I love TikTok.
Okay. So, last, I try to be comment dire, concise. What are you listening to right now? This is a weird question, I know, because you are hosting a radio show on Kerrang and then on Absolute Radio, right?
Yeah. I've mainly been listening to podcasts.
Okay.
And my favorite podcast is Last Podcast on the Left. I've been listening to that for about 5 years now. And it's basically comedians talking about serial killers.
Oh.
And it's got some very funny moments, but they never make fun of the victims, the serial killers. They just make fun of the serial killers. And I listen to that. I've been listening to a lot of Bad Flower. I think they're really exciting. And I'm really loving the Oxymorons, who have been signed by 333 Records, which is Jason Alon from Fever's record label. So they're signed. The Oxymorons are now label mates with Nova Twins.
That's super cool.
Bad Flower are just great. They're just an amazing band. And who else have I been listening to? So that's pretty. Do you know what? I've not been listening to as much heavy music. since
Okay.
lockdown. Because I think my anxiety levels are so high, I just need things that are a little bit more chill.
Yeah.
So
I did the same thing.
really,
Yeah, I did the same thing. I started to listen to MIA.
oh wow, okay.
Yeah. I discovered this girl. She's super. She's super with words. Yeah, I love them when she rap. So last thing, last request. Your wake up song.
Wake up song. It depends what I'm going to be doing, but normally it would probably be something like A Day to Remember Resentment. Because A Day to Remember just writes songs where it's just like, and you just, yeah, let's get on with the day, and they're really high motivation. Or something from maybe Hailstorm, because
Okay.
it's always a
Yeah,
good,
she's
like, motivating song.
okay. Your workout song.
Workout song, I've been listening to a lot of Ronnie Radke, Popular Monster. That's always a good one. I always go to the old classics like Parkway Drive,
Okay.
Slipknot. Tend to go a bit more that way.
And your song for having fun, for going out, you know?
That would probably be, I'd listen to one of the Punk Goes Pop albums, because Punk Goes Pop is just really good fun. So it might even be something like I Prevail's cover of Taylor Swift,
Oh.
because that song is phenomenal. And I know metal fans, as soon as they hear Taylor Swift, like just go, what? But that is the song that I discovered I Prevail from, because they released that cover. And then I hadn't even heard any music, and I was just playing them constantly with that one song. And now they're just absolutely killing it in the scene, because I Prevail write the best hooks on their tunes. Like their song structure is phenomenal. It's like old school nu metal without being a copy. It's like they've done it in a completely fresh and modern way. I'm a huge fan of I Prevail.
Oh, cool to hear. And last one, your guilty pleasure song.
So I don't believe in guilty pleasures, because I think that to be able to appreciate music, you have to be, some of the best songs in the world are also classified as some of the worst. Like Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas is one of my favorite songs in the world. And I've played it. I used to play it on Team Rock, and I've played it on Kerrang Radio, and the audience hated me for doing it. But it's a genius song. Like it's so good that every year at Christmas across the entire world, it gets played everywhere, in every shop, at every party. And all it takes, it's like My Chemical Romance, the entrance to that, the intro to that song, like that E, you hear that E and you're like, oh, I know what song this is. But then with Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas, this like ding ding ding, oh, that's all you need to hear, and you're like, I know what song this is. And yeah, I'm not ashamed to say that's one of my favorite songs in the world.
Thank you. That's really cool to hear. So, what could we wish to you, Sophie?
What could you wish?
Yeah, to you. What could we wish to you? I don't know if we can say that in English, but we say that in French.
I think I know what you mean. So as in, what do we hope that's going to happen going forward?
Yeah, for you, yes.
Hopefully I can grow within the rock and metal genre. That's my plan. And I want to be in more of a position of power so that I'm able to create more content, which includes the different varieties of rock, and create a platform where young rock fans, young rock fans are able to listen to the music that they're into. And it's not just the old guys saying, oh, that's not rock, that's not rock. I want to create a place where we're not constantly listening to the bands from 1987 and we're creating something of the bands that are happening today, because rock is happening and it's going through a resurgence, but the problem is rock isn't recognizing it. So the resurgence of rock is happening without rock. So you've got Machine Gun Kelly just killing it right now. You've got Youngblood absolutely nailing it. You've got 100 Gex killing it. You've got all these bands doing amazing big things. Emo rappers creating these songs that are, they're rock songs, and it's all getting completely ignored. So I'm just waiting and trying to create somewhere where within rock it's recognized that they are part of rock as well, and that because if we keep ignoring it, rock will die.
Yeah, you're right.
But there's only so long that Bruce Dickinson can headline festivals. There's only so long Corey Taylor has got. I mean, Ozzy Osbourne hasn't got long left. It has to be allowing the Youngbloods and the Machine Gun Kellys. And on the case of Machine Gun Kelly, everyone, when I used to play him, everyone used to say he's hip hop, and people say he's a hip hop star turned rock. And that is people who've never listened to him. Yes. I went to see Machine Gun Kelly probably in around 2015, because he was a rocker from day one. And he created this hip-hop album, which did really well. But when you saw him play it live, he had like a Jonathan Davis style microphone. You know the old school new metal, like old school microphones that you have the skulls down them?
Yeah.
He had one of those with a bandana hanging off it, and he had a full metal band behind him whilst he was rapping over these metal riffs. So when you heard it on record, it was electronic, but when you saw it live, it was metal. And yes, he made it in hip hop, but he knew exactly what he was doing. He was always part of rock, and it's the same with Grandson. They're creating music that appeals to the popular masses, but when you see them live, they're a rock and metal band. So yeah, that's why that's why I used to play Machine Gun Kelly on my rock show, even when everyone thought it was just straight up hip hop, because he's not become rock. He always was rock.
So again, thank you. A last word for the French audience.
Merci.
Oh, bien. Thank you so much.